What's up, my friends? This is Post-Production Pie, Editor-in-Chief for SRLounge.com. Welcome to another installment of our weekly Ordinary to Extraordinary Raw Edit featuring the SR Lounge Lightroom Preset System V5. Now, as always, we're going to be demonstrating how to create our effects with the preset system, and then we're going to be going through the actual settings just to help everybody understand what is going on or what's going into each look and effect. So that way, whether you have the presets or whether you don't, everybody that's watching this video can be able to benefit. Now, if you don't have the presets and you're interested in learning more about the SR Lounge Lightroom Preset System, just click on the link below in the description and it'll take you to the SR Lounge store. So that's it for me. Let's get started. In this video, I want to show you an additional use for our HDR presets, or for the soft HDR presets. And that's for a scene like this to really reveal or bring out all the shadows and kind of amplify our tonal range without making it too over the top candied. All right, so let's first jump in and we're going to hit information just to bring up, we're going to hit I to bring up our information. And this was shot on a 5D Mark III. We have around 12.7, 12.5, 12.7. I don't know what the actual number is. It's on DxO Mark. All right, just go check it out. But anyway, we have somewhere in the high 12s, kind of low 13 range as far as the captured dynamic range. So once again, getting the correct exposure with this type of image is absolutely paramount. Now, we have shot this on a 17 to 40 millimeter lens at this is an f4 lens, but we shot this at f9 because once again, this lens is notoriously unsharp at f4. And so we're at 1/2 of a second. That's fast enough that we can freeze whatever activity is happening. Nothing's really happening in this scene, so the clouds are probably moving faster than the people, and they're not going to be blurry at 1/2 of a second. Come on now. All right, so we shot this at ISO 100 as well. Keeping it at ISO 100, I forgot to mention this before, but keeping it at ISO 100 is absolutely crucial. When you're trying to do a single shot HDR, if you bump the ISO up, you're losing dynamic range right off the bat, okay? So we're trying to maximize dynamic range. You want to keep the ISO at the lowest possible native ISO setting on any camera that you're shooting on. So if we check out the histogram, we can see that we have most of our tonal range intact. Now, I think it would have been a little bit better if I'd pushed the highlights just a smidge up a little bit against this right edge, just so we had a little more of the shadows, but it won't make too big of a difference in this scene because our shadows are really in the crowd and we're going to keep it a little bit on the darker side anyway. So I'm not too worried about it. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to hit I to remove my information. I do see a couple dust flecks, so let's go ahead and turn on our dust correction curve first, and let's make those little dust adjustments. So again, in Lightroom 5, you can click and drag over little dust fragments like that. I really need to do a better job of cleaning my lenses. It's tough, guys. I get out and shoot too much. It's tough to clean. That's just me complaining. All right, we got most of it out right now. Let's just turn off the curve and let's make sure we're good. So everything looks good right there. I'm going to turn off my spot removal tool now. All right, you can always adjust exposure up and down if you want to check, but the dust correction curve actually does a really good job of detecting dust over the Lightroom 5's new the visualize spots. So when you're in this spot removal tool, you can actually hit A to bring up visualize spots. If you want to adjust it, you can hit T to bring up the toolbar and pull it up and down. Again, this is only for Lightroom 5 users, but it's not really going to matter because once again, we recommend that you just use the dust correction curve. It does a much better job of visualizing overall. Did I say visualizing? Visualizing? Anyway, you can zoom in and you can still see the dust very, very clearly. So actually we can still see a little bit over here and over here. Whereas with visualize spots, when you zoom in, it becomes very difficult to see anything because you see too much kind of noise and other artifacts in the image. All right, let's reset this out. And we're going to go up to our base soft category. And again, I love doing this. I can flip between the different HDR settings to see where I want to be. Okay, I want to be right around the HDR heavy, but not too far. The HDR max is just a little bit too over the top. We have a little bit unnatural skin tones here. And just for giggles, let's check out the vivid version of these same presets. The vivid version is going to create a little more kind of candied of colors, and so it's not going to look good when you have people in it, but there are some of us that really like that candied look. I'm not here to judge, guys. I'm here to give you tools. So if you like that look, then by all means go for it. For me, I'm going to go with the more subtle. I always like my HDRs not to be noticeable as HDRs. I just like them to be images that have a broader dynamic range, but you don't look at it and go, ooh, that's an HDR image. All right, so I'm going to keep it right around the heavy side, and that looks good. Let's hit R, and I'm going to adjust this crop just a little bit. It feels like my ocean's a little bit tilted. I'm just going to go back a little bit this way. That looks a little better. And it gives me my kind of straightened out pagoda. I'm surprised that pagoda came to my mind. Usually when I think of a word like that, I can't think of it quite on the spot like that. All right, let's adjust the exposure down just a little bit to bring back a little bit of our sky. Actually, I'm going to leave it, you know what, let's leave it up a little bit higher because we're going to make a couple adjustments to the sky in just a second. But let's just take a look at what that preset did. So here's the before, here's the after. We can see how much that's revealing in the shadows here. It does a really great job. Now I don't want to reveal all those shadows. I do want to darken a little bit, and I also want to tweak my sky a bit. And we're going to do that with our adjustments. But let's take a look at our settings. And this is actually going to be, whoops, this is actually going to be the same as our last image. I am going to tweak my temperature while I'm here. Let's just warm it up a little bit. We'll go up to about 6100. Okay, so we have an exposure set to 0. Again, contrast at plus 75. We have the same settings for highlights and whites, negative 75 each. Shadows are plus 75 each. That's the heavy setting. So as we go up and down, or if we go to medium, it's at plus 50. If we go to heavy, it's at 75. When we go to max, it's going up to 100 on everything. Okay, so again, this 75 and around is going to give us a more natural look. If we want, we can reset out the clarity. It's not really going to matter too much for this image because it's an environmental portrait. Either way, it's going to be totally fine. Well, it's not even an environmental portrait. This is really in between a landscape and, well, a landscape, because it is pretty much a landscape image. All right, under vibrance and saturation, we have -5, -5. I'm going to leave that where it's at because if I don't, I think these people's skin tone over here is going to get gnarlified. I made up a new word, gnarlified. All right, we have our tone curve, standard, subtle contrast boosting curve over here. Under HSL, we have -20, -10 for our red and orange reduction. And that's not going to have much effect over anything else in this image because we only have skin tones that we want to kind of tweak. We don't have any other reds. All right, so that looks good. Detail, we have sharpening at 70, 1.5, 10, and 30. Zooming in, this all looks pretty solid. Noise reduction is at plus 40. We can kind of do a little check and see if that's too high or too low. It might be a little bit high on this image because we don't really have that much. Oh, you know what? I'm going to trust the preset. The preset actually looks nicer. When I brought it back, we can see a little bit of that noise, and yeah, you're going to be able to see it even more on this side. So let's just leave it. Let's trust my research. I've done my research on this. All right. So now under lens video, we have 30 and 30. What we can do with this is just double click it to remove it because we're going to not worry about that. I don't need it to be even from edge to edge. That's it for this image, and now what we're going to do is make some modifications. So let's go to our adjustment brushes. We're going to select sky, cloud, ocean because we have a lot of sky here. Once again, if you don't have the presets, hit pause at this point. You can dial it in as we're making our adjustments, and you can hit play once you're ready to proceed. All I'm doing is I'm painting this in. We're at a flow of 100. We're at a density of 100, so it goes on thick. We're putting it on thick, and then we're going to remove it wherever we don't want it. All right, so that looks good. Let's hold down Alt now. I'm going to decrease the size. I'm also going to make sure my flow is back at 100 on my eraser, and we're just going to kind of pull it up and out of this area that we don't want it. So I don't want it to cover any of the crowd. All right, now we're going to flip over to our graduated filter, and I'm going to go down to a -0.5 stop, and we're going to hold down Shift. That's going to constrain this little adjustment so it doesn't wiggle left and right like this. Okay, so if you want to keep it straight to any vertical or horizontal line, just hold down Shift as you're dropping it in. I'm going to bring it up just a titch, maybe about to here. And you know, it's funny, moving this from left to right does absolutely nothing. It's just kind of bothered me that it wasn't right in the middle. So okay, so we can adjust, if we want to, our vignette just to kind of pull in a little bit of a vignette here. And what I might do even is pull in a little graduate filter over from the right side just to darken down the right side a bit. And really, it's not necessary. It's just that I'd rather have kind of that even tone in the sun over from the right side going over the left, or at least a little bit closer. So that looks really nice. It looks very natural. I'm going to leave it at 0.3. And I'm digging it. We have our crowd kind of darkened. We have some of the detail revealed, but again, we're darkening a little bit so that we can bring that revelation, bring the revelation in our detail into the center. And we have nice clouds now. Let's check out the before and the after with these adjustments. So here's our before. Here's that nice poppy HDR, a natural HDR after. All right, looking good. If we did want to, remember, if you have too much saturation in anybody in the, like in the crowd, you can always remove some of that saturation with just a desaturate brush. But you know what? Whenever, if you guys have noticed, whenever you have that sun setting and it's hitting people, it creates a very kind of bright look anyway, and it kind of has a lot of color to it. So I'm not really scared of this color over here on this side. It looks totally fine for me. I'm going to let you guys choose whether you want to adjust or not. All right, so great job, everybody, and we'll see you all in the next video.